Well, hey, welcome back to the channel, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about an overlooked technique, and that's vibrato. Now, with great vibrato, you can play one note and really get your point across. Some of the greatest players do that. You know, from your blues players like, of course, B.B. King, Albert Collins. They're some of my favorites. And of course, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix, all your rock players, Gary Moore, metal guys, and you name it. Vibrato is such an important part of your own personality and your own voice on the instrument, yet it's often overlooked, and going backwards and trying to fix it can be a challenge. I see a lot of beginners and intermediates that really struggle with this. Vibrato is a tricky thing to teach, but I'm going to do it in this video the way I like to explain it and the way I learned it. It's not always the most musical thing to work on, and sometimes it can take a long time to really get under your fingers. But we're going to talk about ways to not only do it in a physical manner, but ways that you can maybe conceptually do it as well. As you're hearing in that example and some of these other ones that I'll flash in from time to time, you can play one note with a really convincing vibrato or a very simple line and nail some nice vibrato on the end of your phrase, and it really has more vocal quality, a more soulful appeal. I mean, I think it was Clapton that said, if you're going to play one note, you better do it with vibrato. I mean, if you're Neil Young playing the Cinnamon Girl solo, you gotta really add some vibrato to that one note solo, and doing so makes for a great musical statement. All right, we're gonna dive into this vibrato lesson, but before we do that, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. That way you'll know when I put out new content. I do it all the time, lessons, gear demos, conversations, all that kind of stuff. You can click the links below too to visit my website. Drop me a note in the comments, tell me what you wanna see me teach on, and just say, hey, all right, let's talk about vibrato, the way I like to teach it and the way I like to use it in my own playing, and maybe it'll transfer into your playing as well. All right, let's do it. All right, so you might be saying to yourself, I know I need to work on my vibrato, but I don't know how to practice it. Well, that can be tricky, just as tricky as it is to teach it. So let's talk about how we can accomplish all these things. So I'm going to show you the techniques that I use and that were helpful to me when I started playing. But what we can also talk about is how to practice, and we can learn these techniques and use them when we're sitting on the couch watching TV and really try to get our muscle memory working. You know, as we do things over and over again, they start to get seated in our brain and in our hands, and that's what we want to do. But we're going to start here kind of simply on the second string. I'm going to bring my pencil in here as my pointer, and we're going to start on the A note here on the second string, 10th fret. And you're going to notice that I like to bring my first finger in at a very hard 45-degree type of angle. And you'll notice that the first knuckle here on my index finger is really pushed up against the neck, okay? And that's on purpose. And there's a reason for that. When you push your first finger down and you pull it away, if you did it really hard, there would be a 45-degree sort of indentation in your finger. Now, why is this important? Well, a lot of people attack the string, or like, well, they say, hey, I got to use the tips of my fingers. And then they get this sound. Or, and it's not this. Which is really what we want, to really evoke the tone and the feeling that we're going for in our playing here. Okay, so that's why I do this approach with my first finger on the second string here at a 45-degree angle. So we're gonna push that down, and one of the things we're gonna do is we're not gonna push up, and we're not gonna try to control the string, because the string always wants to come back to where it's taut or tuned to. So if we pull the string, it always wants to go back to where it's at. Same thing's going to happen when you pull it down with this first finger. So what happens is you create a fulcrum here and a pivot point. And I don't know much about geometry, but you guys that are watching it that know more about it than I do, this will make sense for you. So what happens is you play the note, pull the finger down, this part of your finger is pushed up against the neck, and then you release. And the string does the work and comes back. So watch this. Now it's probably looking like I'm pushing the string, but I'm not. I'm just pulling down on it and releasing. So all you're doing physically is pulling. Once you pull it, you let up the pressure slightly and the string goes back into place and tuned where it normally would be. So pull, release, pull, release. Again, I know it's going to look like I'm going, forcing it back, not happening. I'm just letting it go naturally to where it wants to be. So if I have a little loop playing here, you can just see that playing one note with vibrato makes a lot of sense. You'll notice that my hand starts to get this sort of B.B. King butterfly-esque sort of, visual to it, or sort of motion to it. And that's really what inspired me when I saw him go. He's got a handle on it so well, pull, release, but what he's also doing is setting himself up so if he wants to do a slow one, the thumb can be on there. Or if he wants to do the fast one, he just kind of lifts that up and gets that going. Now, you don't want to neglect any other fingers, and this is where the non-sort of musical part comes into it. This is the physical work that you're going to need to do. So, what we're going to do is we're going to put our second finger in front of the first finger and apply the same motion. Look at my fingers still there, up against the neck. Thumb is just kind of resting. I can move it if I want to, but again, pull and release. Again, I'm not forcing it back. So a lot of players, when they start working on this, their hands are they're trying to squeeze the life out of the guitar. Just do it enough to get a tone, which is pretty light. Pull the string down and let it go back to where it's taut. Don't try to force it, because that's what's going to happen. Okay? So then what I like to do, just for learning and just for practice, I put my third finger right in front of it. Okay, so now the same applies. And the cool thing is, as you start adding fingers, these other fingers stay behind and they add support and strength. And that's really important because you don't want to see this or this. Now you'll see some people go, I know Clapton's a big but even still, watch some of your players with the great vibrato. Those fingers are back there helping it for sure. Same thing applies. Now we're not going to be able to do a B.B. King butterfly kind of thing with the third finger, but the technique, see, well, my hand moved a little bit, but it's still up against the neck. So important. Then you can move on to your pinky, because this is a little soldier that we can't forget about. Same concept. Look at my finger. Still pulling. Now I have all the strength from fingers 1, 2, and 3 helping that. So why is this sort of like a preferred technique? Well, what if I'm playing this kind of thing? And I do vibrato. See how my finger, even though I had to move it up a little bit to grab the note, it's still up against the neck, still pulling down. but those other fingers are there for strength. And if you notice, as I play licks, I'm not going, I'm keeping those fingers there because I never know when I'm gonna need it. I need that vibrato straight away. I need the power of those other fingers behind it. If I wanna go finger stacked up. Okay, so just to recap, start with that A note, first finger, second string, 10th fret, that's an A note. And if you're playing, just go, hear how that sounds. Or use your third finger, scooch it back. Same concept. Remember, I'm not pushing, I'm just pulling and releasing. Okay, so important. All right, so that's my quick little vibrato lesson. That should get you started. Now, we didn't touch the first string. That could be a whole other video in and of itself. I just wanted to make this short. And we can also talk about the players who, some players do a push-up. But what's gonna happen is you're gonna get a handle on how that string feels in your hands. This is just a way to get started incorporating all 4 fingers and really trying to get the guitar to speak a little bit better. I know y'all are out there because I talk to you in private lessons, I talk to you in emails, and I know that you're struggling with vibrato. So this lesson needs to be out there in the ether just to kind of cover the subject. All right? So I hope you enjoyed that lesson. I hope you enjoyed some of the fun little playing examples there because I wanted you to hear how it can work in a very simple way over a really fun track, all right? All right, so there's a quick little lesson on vibrato. Should get you started if you're having trouble with it. Once you get the technique, like I said, practice on your couch, practice out on your deck in the summertime with a cup of coffee or a nice adult beverage. It's a fun thing to work on just to get your hands moving. And it'll really pay off for the rest of your guitar playing life. All right, I'm Corey Congilio. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I wish you would, and ring the bell so you know when I put out new content. Drop me a line below in the comments or on my website, and I'll see you guys on another lesson.